Good afternoon, everyone. I am Judy Gabriel-Virgo, and we are here today. At least it's my sort of time returning doing podcasts with Black Mental Health Canada after a bit of a break. And so I'm really excited to be back and be joined here with author Fanen Chiahemen. So I'm really thankful to be here with you. And yeah, before we get started, I'll kind of give a bit of a breakdown. I'm going to introduce our wonderful guest. You'll be very pleased to know who we're speaking with today, and I think very intrigued. I'm actually really looking forward to our conversation. I'll do a bit of, I didn't tell you this in our prep before, Fanan, and I did this purposely, but I'm going to do a bit of a rapid fire kind of throw some words out there with you, kind of get
Okay.
us into our conversation after I give the bio, and then we'll just start. Yeah. So if any
Okay.
of our guests have any questions, please and put it in the chat and
Sounds wonderful.
get to your questions. Okay. All right. How are we for sound? Are you hearing me okay?
I'm hearing you fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
There is a
Okay.
bit of a lag delay sometimes, but I think it's just because I see something uploading. Yeah.
Yes, I'm noticing that as well. I'm noticing that. So I know that we have our tech behind scenes. We're probably going to work through that. So we'll just continue and trust that we'll smooth out very shortly. Okay. So Fanen
Okay.
Chiahemen is an author of the best-selling memoir Never Make a Sound,
Mhm.
which was a finalist for the 2021 VMI Best Betsy Borland Between Genres Award. That's really exciting. Something else that Fanan does as well is she sends out emails on a monthly basis to support people or help people, particularly who are survivors, to find transformation in overcoming their adversity. So that's something that she does on a monthly basis. And right now, I know that you are in Southern California at a writer's residence. And you're there for about 4 weeks doing a write. So we'll get some information about that as well because it sounds like yeah, yeah, it sounds like you're in this incubator kind of thing. So we'll unravel that a bit.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you again for joining us. So I'll start off, like I said, with a rapid fire just to get us warmed up and just to kind of give our audience a hint and
Mhm.
us as well in terms of where our conversation is going to go. So I'll say this first word and you just tell me what you think. Trauma.
Um, the first word that came to mind when you said that was rupture. I don't know why. It just the word rupture came
Mm-hmm.
to mind. This trauma to me is some kind of a break or a rupture to me. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In your system, but I've heard that described so many ways.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's interesting is that
I think and it really depends on what kind of trauma.
mhm,
Please go
mhm.
ahead. Go ahead.
So what I was going to say was, I also have heard it described in so many ways, and I've never heard it described the way you have described it. I think that one word is so fitting, rupture. Absolutely. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Black women.
Ooh. Ooh. The first thing that comes to mind is like the cliche of like strong.
Okay.
um, yeah. But yeah, multifaceted,
Mhm, mhm,
multifaceted,
mhm,
multi-talented, multifaceted. Yeah,
mhm.
is how I would put
Okay.
that.
Wonderful. So strong, multifaceted, multi-talented. Okay. Love it. Mental health.
Foundation,
Hmm.
mental health. I think of the word foundation, something that grounds you in life. I think having solid mental health.
Mm-hmm.
mental health practices.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. All right. So I want to get on to your memoir, Never Make a Sound. I'll say the title right there just intrigued me. And then when I read about the memoir, I thought, okay, yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to just have you describe to me why the memoir and how it came about. And then the
Okay.
title, you'll
Yeah.
you'll sort of talk to us about the title.
Um. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I had. I've had a strange life to begin with. So I always knew that I would tell my story in some way.
Mm,
Um, and there are parts of my life that are very very easy to talk about, the parts that are on the surface, the parts that are visible, the trajectory of it. But then
mhm,
my life had this sort of underbelly that I had,
mm,
that was much much harder to talk about, and that it took me years to process it as well. And there came a point, where where I realized that I had experienced a lot of trauma growing up. And it took a while for me to realize that. And while I was on a trajectory of healing for that, I got into meditation practices and things like that, yoga, meditation. And I've told the story before, but I went to this 10-day silent meditation retreat.
mm,
And you know while I was really in it, smack in the middle of it, I began to sort of hear my own inner voice saying that you actually need to tell, what happened now.
mm,
You need to, tell this story now.
mhm,
Um, that's sort of the unblockage that's going to happen if you.
mm,
I didn't think of it in this way, but it was just a very urgent call
mhm,
to get this story out there. Like, oh, that's what I need to do.
mhm,
That's going to be really important for healing. It's going to be almost the beginning of something, and
mhm,
that's what it turned out being. I came home, and that the very next day, I actually started like typing away at the story, and and so like I said, like, I always knew I would tell my story, a version of my story, but the decision to tell this, the part about my early childhood, which is
mhm,
what this book is about, just it was a moment of clarity that
mm.
realized that, oh, that's what I need to do.
Yeah.
But I hadn't thought of it before, because it took me a while even just to make sense of the story. To tell you the truth, it took years, because of the nature of the story. Yeah,
Mhm,
yeah. So
mhm. So I find that so interesting and kind of ironic in a sense that it was a silent retreat that made you realize you actually need to break the silence and speak and tell the story.
yes, yes, right, yes, exactly. And as you're saying that, I'm just thinking about even like the title, like "Make a Sound," how that like the two, they seem like a, yeah, it's so interesting. Like the "Never Make a Sound" is like it's a call to silence, and yet
Right.
um, there was a breaking of the silence that led to "Never Make a Sound" being told. And that title actually comes from a line in the book.
Mm,
Um, I guess it'll be interesting for readers to hear how that line came about. When I was in the editing process of the book,
mhm,
there is a sound, there is a line, like I said, that says, um, you can be beaten to death and never make a sound. And the
mhm,
editor who I was working with said, this book is that sound.
mm. Interesting.
So yeah, so it just became like, okay, that motif of silence and making a sound, and crying out in pain, or
Mhm,
keeping pain in, not expressing pain, all of that. It just felt like it's the perfect motif for the book. And it's interesting how it's turned out to be such an And it's how it interesting ties back to even how the book came about. Is it came about in silence when I wasn't making a sound.
That I think is the magnificent part of all of this, and I think that's what's really intriguing. I've been reading some of the reviews, and the reviews are magnificent around this book. Very powerful in terms of when I surmise the reviews that this is a very powerful memoir, and in fact, it doing just that, right? So I think the title is so fitting, is so powerful, and we know, and you can tell me a little bit about this, like, much of the trauma and the suffering that we experience is alive. It happens, and then it remains alive and well because there is this: don't make a sound, be silent, don't speak of it. And so and so you know breaking that, by and your title really gives that to me, like breaking that, never make a sound, although you're making very much a sound, really kind of works towards that. That healing process is really around making that sound and really speaking about it, right?
Yes, yes, yeah. I love that you said that because if it comes to trauma, especially like developmental trauma, which is what this is
Mhm,
about,
mhm.
um,
Yeah.
you can get into a situation where your trauma doesn't just go away. You have to address it, right?
Mhm.
And if you don't, what ends up happening is that your life essentially becomes like a byproduct of that trauma. And that is kind of that happened to me to a certain extent.
Mm,
But by telling the story, I stopped that from happening, and I sort of took control of my life back. So I love that you said that. It's so important, um, to break that silence around this,
mm,
because that is how you move forward. But I understand how incredibly difficult that is because people do not want to face those ugly, painful things, especially when they do not have any kind of a framework or support system. They don't know
absolutely.
what's going to happen if they open those doors. So
Absolutely.
I do understand the natural. It's I can't stress enough how that doesn't actually ultimately help. It's a self-defeating um,
Mm,
stance.
mhm. So you said it so right, and so I want to kind of talk about this a little bit. So easier said than done, and I think it does take a certain courage, level of courage, to be able to do this. What was that process like for you? What were some of the challenges in breaking that silence?
It's funny. When I look at my life, I have always been somebody. I always wanted to heal from a
Mm,
very young age. If you read the book,
mm,
there are passages where I, as a child, take it upon myself to go and seek help. And I
hmm,
think that is what is quite unique about my story, is that that doesn't I don't hear about that very often, where
mm,
a child actually goes, and I did it in ways that were not always effective, didn't always get me the help I needed,
mhm,
but I was a child, and so I didn't have all the tools to go and get the help. But what stands out to me about my story is that I was the one who made the decision. It's about a choice. I
mhm,
really want people to understand that healing is about a choice, and I've had to
mm,
make that choice over and over and over again in life. But it started as a child. I've been very self-aware. I as a kid, I could observe what was happening around me. I knew things were wrong, just didn't have a language or a framework for it. And so I made that decision, as young as 13. I want to, what makes me this way? And I kept and even though I would attempt to get help and not get the help I needed a lot of the time, and it took many, many years, I never gave up. I just kept going back and back and back and trying and trying and
mm.
trying. And yeah, years later, if you just keep trying, you can get the help you need. But like I said, the most important thing I think people need to understand is that it is a choice that you make.
Mm, mhm.
Does that make
Absolutely.
sense?
It completely makes sense. And so I kind of feeling the energy of the listeners. I don't know. They're probably thinking, well, what is like, get us into the book, get us into the story. And I'm purposely kind of going around because I really want to be strive to be going read the memoir. But what I do want, without us going too deep into it, I want you, if you don't mind, giving us just a general kind of landscape, right? So and you can describe it in big words, right, in terms of what that trauma was, and then what was that, what did it look like at that point, even at
Mhm.
13, when you thought, I need to go and get help? What was that breaking point, so to speak, if that's even the right way to describe it?
Okay. Okay, yeah. I mean, so using, like you said, like I'll use sort of big words, big headlines, and we're talking about an early childhood that involves, domestic abuse,
Mhm,
alcoholism, parental separation,
mhm,
um, constant destabilization,
mhm,
um, and but the most important thing is that there was the trauma happened
mhm,
without the adults in those situations actually
mhm,
seeing that there was trauma. And so
mhm,
what ended up happening was, when children are traumatized and are not able, they don't get help, they tend to act out.
mhm,
So my childhood was very much marked by me acting out. And the acting out came from, like, again, this disturbance in my mind about what was happening, but also dissociation. Dissociation was a way that I used to cope I didn't realize it then, of course. I don't think that as a child, if you are using a means of self-protection, I don't think you're really aware of
mhm,
the tools that you're using. You just do it. And
mhm,
so it led to this alienation, this really extreme alienation that began in childhood.
mhm.
And uh, yeah, so that's really it. It's sort of my self image, the image of myself was very distorted from a very young age, because
Mhm,
it you know it looked like I was acting out for no reason, if that makes sense, because what was happening wasn't really being acknowledged as
mhm,
damaging. and
mhm,
um and
mhm.
so it's almost like a gaslighting, like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean. I mean, what we're talking about, a lot of this book deals with the issue of emotional abuse. And
Mhm,
emotional abuse of a child is I have to say to people might not know this, it's actually just as bad, if not worse, than physical or sexual abuse.
mhm.
Because if the child does not know
Right,
that's what's happening, that anything wrong is happening to them, they
right.
think something is wrong with them.
Right.
And it becomes a sort of you're sort of gaslit essentially into thinking that there is something wrong with you, that you're a defect. And so I grew up believing from a very young age that I was a defect, and I was a monster, and that there was some I wasn't I there was something wrong with me. I wasn't fully human. And
Hmm,
I really do mean that.
hmm.
And that went on for many, many years. And that had a very damaging effect on my life, and then the way that I interact with people. And so I do believe that there are many people out there who feel this way. And yeah, that's really that's what that yeah, those are the big themes of the book,
Yes,
mhm,
yes,
and my
yes.
story.
And so when you talk about those big themes, I'm just like, and we know that there's nuances and things are different in every situation, but how many of us can relate to those very big themes, right? Alcoholism, abuse, neglect, separate parental separation, and then what the fallout is of that. And you're so correct in saying, I don't want to stop you. Did you have a thought? Okay, I'll continue. And you're so,
Sorry, your sound cut out for a minute there. You said you're
yeah,
so
yeah, I'm feeling like we're a bit choppy here now. Um, so yeah, so
okay. So try again. I think your sound is back now. So you said
okay,
I'm
it's back
so
now. Okay. All right. So what I was saying was, I'll start from the beginning again, was that when you talk about those big themes, like so many of us can relate to those experiences, right? When we talk about family separation, alcoholism, level of abuse, neglect, and so on and so forth. And then of course the children, I love how you put it, that now the children's sort of fallout of this, it's sort of the epitome of gaslighting, right? It's like it's not really said that, okay, no, this is a symptom of
Hmm.
different problems that are happening, and it's actually not the child's fault, but then the child's behavior being
Yes,
the thing that,
exactly. That's
yes,
it. Yes,
yes,
yes.
yes. And so we can easily focus on that. And then yes, that, and so when you talk about, now
So
you
you hit the
sort of,
nail on the
you've walked through the world with this self-perception, right? And now the unraveling and the healing has to
head.
happen, right? And that takes quite some time, and it takes bravery, and it takes honesty, and all these other things it takes to be able to deal with that.
Yeah, yeah, and I love what you said there. The symptom,
Mhm.
looking back, when I finally, started understanding, contextualizing what happened, um, I was like, oh, trauma is a normal response to
Mhm.
abuse. No, trauma is a normal response to abuse and neglect,
Yeah.
and um, dissociation is a normal response to trauma not being addressed in the child. And so what actually happened, I was actually really normal. Like my brain was actually functioning very healthily.
Mhm.
Um, but it's funny, it makes it look as though you're kind of but actually your brain is just trying to protect you. So it is really important to understand these symptoms. Uh,
Yes.
Acting out in a child is symptomatic.
Yes.
you know
Yes.
that's something I really, even to this day, I see it with adults and kids, and
Yeah.
I'm like, I want people to understand that acting out in a child is a symptom.
Right. Right. So talk to me a little bit about, you are a Black woman, I'm a Black woman, and I'm not sure where you are actually from. Um, but I'm just making some big assumptions here, but we can talk about this, that culturally as well, like, in terms
Hmm.
of dealing with this trauma and recognizing it as such, and then moving through a space of healing and even living through it, culturally, that layer must have added sort of different challenges, or maybe even different levels of resiliency. I don't know. Could you talk to me a little bit about that in terms of culturally, the
Hmm.
impact?
Yeah, I mean, sure. Yeah, I was born in Lagos, Nigeria, but I've had a very, peripatetic journey. I lived
Yeah.
in many countries, but I'm a part of the diaspora, like
Yes.
you say.
Yes.
And uh, right, and um, well, I guess what I'll say about that is I think it's important to 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 really promote the idea of going to seek psychological help
Mhm.
in our diaspora.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? I feel like few people do that unless they are pushed and forced to.
Mhm.
And I think I would like to encourage people to be more open to exploring rather than trying tools that you are told is how you're meant to deal with something, but it's not working. You know what I mean? If something isn't
Mhm.
working, I really encourage to push the boundaries, think outside the box, no matter what culture you come from, no matter what you are told. You only have one life. It is your life, and I am telling you, it's
Mhm.
worth it and important to
Mhm.
address even the most stickiest, trickiest problems that you have. It's worth it. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, that's what I would say. Rather than just, oh well, there's nothing, having a defeatist attitude towards it. Think outside the box, push, seek help outside of your community if you need to, outside of your
Mhm.
family, outside of your community. You do not need to stay within a, a ring. if you find that it's not working. I think I'll put it that way. I think it's important to, yeah.
Okay. Now, I'm definitely going to move through, and I want us to talk a lot about the healing process, right? And what that looks like now, sort of on the other side, if I can put it like that. And before we get kind of to the other side, I read some reviews here of your book, and I'll just read a sentence. And I thought that this was quite powerful. This is an industry review.
Sure.
Yeah, and I found yeah, this was so Fanen Chiahemen's, excuse me, harrowing memoir, Never Make a Sound, sends us tumbling into a childhood of beautifully hellish years, with language that moves deftly from quiet confession, excuse me, to lion's roar. Chahaman evokes the past as predator, where escape to fantasy is always a close call. Can you talk to us a little bit about
I
why?
love that.
I
Yeah.
love it. I love it. I love that.
That's such a way of putting it. I love, the quiet confession,
Yes,
lion's roar.
that's
Again,
it.
how you can, to me, it speaks to like how something can be incredibly powerful without being big, loud, notable. It's a very slight book. Most
Mhm,
people who I talk to read it in one sitting. Like I think like 90% of the people who I've spoken to say that they couldn't put it down, and
mm,
it was gripping, and they read it in one sitting.
mhm,
And which is so interesting to me because that was not at all my intention, and I
mm,
never imagined that would be the effect of the book. And I think that's what it speaks to, is that I just went in and was very, very honest. The way that
yes,
I approached, this was to not shy away from the toughest, the really tough things I had to say, to be really honest, say it exactly how I experienced it. And I made a decision to be vulnerable. I was like, I've got
mm,
nothing to lose. I have to just tell the truth.
mhm,
And
mm,
because I did that, and I believe that is what gave it its power. In fact, I think that's, yeah. Someone even said that to me. Like, that's the base of the book, is that it's intentionally something about that, I guess, um, resonates with people when they hear a truth, and it can be. I never thought of this book as being suspenseful, and gripping, and that is what people are telling me, because
mm,
you are going into someone's, deep personal truth, and it
correct.
can be, ugly and spiky, and I think that's the reason why people are so riveted by it. It's
Mhm,
rare to hear,
mhm.
like the review you just read. It's like that's the effect of it. So
Yes,
yeah, yeah, it's
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. And I think what you say is so correct, right? It's truth. And so I think the deep really does truly call to the deep, right? And so if you're being vulnerable and being truthful, people are going to resonate with that because, again, this is our human life experience. These are the big buckets that we talked about are things that we all as going passing through this life and journeying through this, we're going to experience those things. And so it really does happen, I'm going to say once in a while, but where a book like you or a production like yourself, your book comes out and really takes that step to say, no, I'm addressing this, right? And putting it out there. And then bam, it's to help
Yeah,
start the
yeah,
healing for so many of us.
yeah.
So,
And I was scared. I was scared of being judged. That was a big fear
mm,
for me. My fear of
mhm,
being judged. But I did it anyway. And I still am, to be honest with you. To be perfectly honest with you, when this book first came out, I still had a lot of shame. I
mm,
wasn't, and even a little bit still. I wasn't ready to go
mhm,
out there and talk about it. I just sort of put it out there, and didn't want to talk too much, because I was still in it. I still had shame and
mhm,
unpacking to do. But
mhm.
from people's reactions, it occurred to me that I actually, my voice is actually important, and people do need to hear this. So maybe that helped to abate some of the shame, but it is something that I still struggle with, to be honest with you.
Okay, okay. So I see that we're up for a break right now. We're going to take a minute break, and I actually like this breaking point. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that shame and then the healing, the moving past that, and at least, yeah, we'll talk. We'll talk in a minute. We'll be right back. I don't know if it's just me, delay in the sound.
Coping in coping in coping in coping in
Okay, so we're back. Thank you. I'm hoping our sound is a little bit better and the timing, so forth. Um, so I wanted to talk about the prison of shame because I call it that because
Mhm.
shame is truly our
Mm,
mental prison. It truly
I
is.
love that.
Yeah, it is. And oh gosh, I struggle with it. You're talking about it. I'm sure again, as a human experience, we all have that. And so and I love how you're so real about it, where, you still kind of struggle with that, with the shame. Um, but and maybe you can
Mm.
talk to me about the but. I don't know. You can just elaborate on this. So I have so much to say about this. Shame.
Yeah, no, I mean, what I found, yeah, throughout the years, as I was growing up, especially as a child and adolescent, I've
Hmm.
always been a writer. I would always journal and write, and for me, that was just. I think first of all, I was just sort of born with that natural inclination towards writing. It's just
Hmm.
some people are just born with that, right? But
Hmm.
I mean, with I don't know what I would have done without it because it was almost like
Hmm.
letting something bleed out. That's how it felt
Hmm.
when when I was an
Hmm.
adolescent and writing. When I would feel, and I wanted to really tell the truth about what was happening. I could not tell the truth to those around me. The
Hmm.
only place I could do it was on the page, and it was really like cutting yourself open and bleeding it out there.
Hmm.
So you allow anything on the page, right? Because it's just you on the page,
Yes.
and I looking back, I do believe that is one very powerful way to deal with things like shame. Writing in general is
Hmm.
really great for healing trauma. I've discovered through in recent years that it wasn't just a fluke that my writing helped. Like it's actually that there's been research done um, for decades since like the 80s
Hmm.
about how writing is actually quite a useful tool in healing things like PTSD.
Right.
So things like there's been research done since the 80s, things like expressive writing.
Hmm.
Um, if you even do like 15 or 20 minutes of that a day,
Hmm.
that actually is used in a lot of settings, mental health settings, for
Hmm.
healing. People really
Hmm.
should know that writing is a very powerful tool.
Hmm.
And it's something that I'm very lucky that I discovered. I had that tool very, very early on, but I try
Yes.
to sort of impart that to other people that you don't have to do it with the goal of becoming like a writer or having anything published. Think of it as a tool. Think of it as a way to um, work through things. Think of it as a way
Hmm.
to provide context. Um, uh, and I think also just giving it gives you some distance when you put something,
Hmm.
you take something out of you, put it on a page, you have a little bit
Yeah.
of distance from it.
Yes.
You are no longer just a victim. You are
Right.
now a participant in the in your destiny in a way.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, I think that that was a big tool for me with addressing shame anyway,
Okay.
and
That's
all
real. I love
emotions. So
that.
yeah, very
I
happy
love
for that.
that. And we'll talk about, maybe this is a good lead into to the writing, the virtual salon that you have, the writing workshop on Bound. Maybe that, can you talk a
Yeah,
little bit about that? Yeah.
yeah. So that came about due to, just due to so many reactions I had from the book.
Okay.
People were saying that they too had similar things they wanted to share, and they just didn't know where to start. And I
Hmm.
was like, this is so interesting. Like, it seems like, we maybe we some of us need some help into tapping into our voice,
Hmm.
however you end up using it in the end.
Right.
I think that there is a real power into tapping into your voice, because that voice is how you begin to share your story. And what I found is that, everybody has, everyone who I've talked to about this book, they 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 relate to it in some way. They have a story themselves. I
Hmm.
mean, everyone does, right? And even if it's not as hard or painful or the same theme,
Hmm.
um, I've talked to so many people who have something they want to share, but they just don't
Hmm.
even know how to begin. And so I'd like to help people. It's I'm going to do a lot of in this workshop. I will discuss a lot about how important it is to find a psychic space to be able to tell the truth. A lot of the ways you can do that is through writing. It's where you can start to do that. And
Hmm.
I want to help people sort of start to really tap into that voice and see where it leads you, because that
Hmm.
gives you a power, like just like it did with me when I had that experience a few years ago at that meditation retreat. So yeah, writing's terribly important. And I think a lot of people want to do it but need a bit of, igniting.
Absolutely
So
right.
this workshop, I'm offering it on November the 22nd.
Yeah.
It's virtual online. And yeah, it's going to be a 2 hour workshop. Yeah, so yeah, we'll go from there. I'm putting it out there. I think that I gave you a link to share with listeners. So yeah, I'd love for anyone to join that
Okay,
is
great.
interested
And
in
if,
doing this kind of work.
just give me the link again. Just say it if you don't mind. It's not through nevermakeasound.com, is it? Not through there? It was, since somehow people get it through there.
Yeah, it is. So my website is just yeah, my website is just it's nevermakeasound.com, very easy. And
Perfect.
if you visit that site, you'll immediately see a pop-up about the workshop, and I have a description of it, and you can sign up right then and there. I have an early bird discount until early November, so it's a good idea to take advantage of that now, before the price goes up. But yeah,
Okay.
it's going to be different. I want it to be a little bit different. I wanted to things, and I'll also share some of the behind the scenes of bringing this story to light. Yeah.
Okay. That's wonderful. Are we okay for delay? Did I overtalk you? I don't think so. Okay.
No, I think you're fine.
We're
Yep,
good.
you're
Okay,
good.
perfect. So I just wanted to, yeah, definitely. Well, I think that that writing workshop sounds really powerful, and I really love how you say it's around getting it out of us and putting it out there on the paper, and so that would look so different for
Yeah.
everybody. It doesn't have to result in the same thing as it, but getting it out of us and putting it out there. I think
Right.
it's a really powerful thing to
Yeah.
emphasize. And you're so right around the writing. I mean, you're telling me, and I totally agree. And I think a lot of us know that writing has been researched for many, many years, back to say that it is a very powerful way or powerful tool of healing. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm very excited for that workshop. I think that that's going to be very healing. Curious, the people involved in your past, have they read the memoir, or have they been a part of this journey of you healing, and what has their response been to this?
Interesting. Really interesting question.
Mhm.
So what I'll say about that is everyone who's involved in the story has read the book, and there have been various levels of feedback and response.
Mhm.
Um, Right. But I will say that that's a really interesting topic. That if you were going to tell your story, it's
Mhm,
not just yours. Other
mhm,
people are involved, and
mhm,
it can be difficult to navigate that. I even had someone reach out to me recently who's going through that and wanted help, and that made me realize that that is something else that I,
mhm,
I maybe I'll discuss it in an upcoming newsletter, but
mhm,
um, I wouldn't let that stop you.
mm,
But if you have any fears or concerns, you know, it's important to have some sort of a mirror or a sounding board or someone you
mm,
trust, so that you know that your motivations for telling that story are pure. I think that
mhm.
that's the most thing. It's really
Yes.
navigating issues of like other family members and anyone involved in your story comes down to purity of intent.
Mm,
And um and and it's important to have certain ways to check on if you're not super self-aware about that, which you may be. um what I would encourage is having some sort of sounding board to know what really is my intent, and it's a process. But also, do not let it stop you from telling the truth and telling your story. And even if and definitely don't let it stop you in the beginning, because in the beginning you just tell the truth, just say what you need to say on the page.
mhm,
Nobody has to read it. You can just tear it up and throw it away.
mhm,
I definitely would never let that be a hindrance. It's
mhm,
when you get to the point, um, when you actually, if you do plan to publish it, it's
mhm,
not something you don't. The way that I approached it is,
mhm,
I said exactly what I need to say, but right up in the editing process, right up until the end, I was editing some things as I
mhm,
became clear and clear about what the
mhm,
final product would look like, and
mhm,
I was okay. So I don't need to maybe say that. I can tweak that a bit.
mhm,
And there were places where I was protective of certain people, and I
mhm,
did that for a reason.
mhm,
I took all that into account.
mhm,
Yeah, but it's definitely a process, and it's something to address. But the one thing I'd want to say about that is, if you are someone who wants to explore the truth,
mhm,
express something you never told before, don't be scared to do it
mhm.
initially. You can't hurt anyone just to tell the truth to yourself on paper.
Right, right, right.
Yeah. So.
I love that. I love that. And I think that's the thing when you talk about pure intent, it really is around
Hmm.
pure intent. And just as I was saying, and you're saying that you were surprised at how well received this memoir is. And I think it's because there is that honesty
Hmm.
there. And I think because your intent is pure. And this is what we
Hmm.
listen, truth gravitates to truth. I have to believe that, right? And so
Yes.
I think that is exactly why this has gone and is is so well received as it is, because your intent was pure, and this was really around healing, a true healing. And so I don't think, yeah, there's not much, I think, resistance for that. Not to say that there isn't any, but I don't think the resistance to that would really hold a lot of weight, because I really feel that the
Yeah.
intention and the trueness of it is what's going to resonate,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's why it's taking off the
Yeah.
way
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
taking
Yeah,
off.
yeah, I think you're so right. The truth, it can be like like that review said, it can be spoken in a whisper, but because it's
Yes.
true, it's
Yes.
it's like a roar.
That's
It's
right.
it's louder. you
That's right.
know.
So now, obviously I didn't know you as a young little girl, and now I'm seeing you as a woman
Hmm.
who has this memoir and told your story. And so, I'm thankful for the story, thankful for your courage. Um, and it took a whole journey of you getting here, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so I'm thankful that you're here to tell your
Thank
story.
you so much.
Yes, in a brave way that you are. So many little girls and boys don't make it here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. And when I think about that, I'm like, what would have helped me as a child and adolescent?
Mm,
Reading a book like this, honestly,
yeah.
knowing if someone had handed me this book, it would have made all the difference. Knowing like, oh, I'm not the only one. I'm not crazy,
Right,
Um,
right.
and You know what I mean? I just think
Yeah.
that things that people, kids think they don't have permission to say.
Right.
I think this is what I really want. That's why when I wrote the book, I really wanted to get in the hands of troubled youth,
Yeah.
teachers, psychologists, mental
Mhm.
health workers, counselors,
Absolutely.
social workers,
Mhm.
um, because even if they're not going through the same thing, a child can see themselves in this,
That's right.
just the way that they're hiding.
Yes.
They can see, they can see what I'm the child in this story is doing, and think,
Yes.
I'm doing the same thing. This is, and they, if they, knowing that you're not the only one, there's a language for it, there's a word for it. It makes
Mhm.
all the difference.
Mhm.
Even,
Complete.
even if you're still going through the thing, just knowing that, I think it would make a difference to a kid. Um,
Completely. Completely.
yeah.
Yes. So what does healing look like to you? What is your life
Mm.
like now as someone who has this
Um,
memoir and is on the journey of healing?
I think what it was for me is authentic, being able to actually be authentic, or
Mm,
authenticity,
mm,
rather than when you feel like I actually now can tell the truth, talk about my life and myself.
mm,
Um, Whereas before, you know, I I did not have a language or the tools, and what
mm,
it really did was, kept me away from people, because, like I said, there was shame and this feeling of
mm,
defectiveness. So
mhm,
that healing, that feeling of defectiveness, even though, like, there's still so much more to tell, and to dive into what I plan to do, but um, that is probably one of the biggest indicators, I would say.
mhm,
Um, you're not you don't feel the need to conceal the story
mm,
anymore.
mhm,
You see what I'm saying?
mhm.
It's
Yeah.
not something that you have to hide from people because it's something, so no, you can actually work with it, and it can actually be a tool, and you can actually
Mm,
share it.
right.
That to me is one way of thinking of healing.
And as you describe that, one of the words that's coming to me right away is freedom, right? There's this freedom,
Yes.
know? And
Yes, that's it. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
how powerful is that to be free, right? We
Yes.
know
Yeah,
that
yeah.
we know that the truth sets us free, and in
Mhm.
truth and in healing there's truth, and there's no shame, and there's all of that, so now we're free, right? And so
Yeah. The truth sets
um,
you free. I mean, it's a cliche, but cliches
yes,
are there for a reason, right? You know what I
exactly,
mean? It's things that are trite because they're true.
ex-
So,
exactly,
and that's, to me, was that what that moment was about in that meditation session. It
right,
was like
okay.
tapping at the doors to freedom. Like, if you, free the voice, free the story, and
Mm,
it'll set you free. It's going to set
mhm,
you free. You know.
mhm.
So yeah, definitely. Hmm.
Okay. So I'm speaking with, I should have done this when we came back from the break, but just in case you're logging in now, I'm speaking with best-selling author of the memoir, Never Make a Sound, Fanen Chiahemen. And we're talking
Hmm.
about the book. We're deep in the conversation right now. And we've moved from, sort of what the trauma was, what that looked like, and then what led up to writing this memoir, and we're calling it big things. We're calling it freedom, and coming out from shame. We're still dealing with the reality is still, dealing with parts of shame and so forth, and knowing that this is a journey and a process. And
Hmm. Yep.
so,
Yep.
yeah, and just to
You know,
recap a
that's
little,
another thing to say about healing, by the way, is that it's not linear. I
ah,
think that,
yeah,
that's something that I hear a lot, but that it really needs to be said, that healing is definitely not linear.
yes,
And that's something else that anyone in mental health struggles
yes,
is going through, needs to understand. I find it's more like a cycle, more like a funnel.
yes, yeah,
You may find that it's not linear, that you're going
mm,
perfectly and healing, healing, healing. It's more like you come back to the same things over and over
mm,
again, but every time you come back, it's less intense. It has less of a grip on you. You can get out of it much more quickly. So those are the things to watch for. It's not to fall into despair if you feel like you're healing from whatever it is, and then you have a setback.
mm,
Notice how quickly do you get back on your
mm,
path. That's
mhm,
where that's what the um is what's going to indicate how you're healing. It is not. I don't know anyone who's had this linear path. Trust me. And people
Yes.
really need to understand that. I think, especially people who are not used to getting help, who aren't used to going to therapy or talking to psychologists or counselors, really need to understand that. It's like, do not be in despair if you have a setback. This is normal, right?
Yes. So there's the golden nugget. Thank you so much for emphasizing that and picking that out, because I think that that's so true. And then with that, really being able to, you know, really put compassion, self-compassion, right? Really loving us ourselves in that process, knowing that it's not
Hmm.
linear, and setbacks, just as you described. I don't even want to do it again because I think you described it perfectly well. That's exactly it. I'm really thankful that you said that. And that's also very validating, right? And we know the power of validation. So you're validating this difficult experience at healing. Yes, I'm moving along, but then I do have a setback or something happens and I'm back again. And so you just validated that that process is in fact part of healing. We're still moving through. And I love how you
Oh
made
yes,
the clear indicator that check how you get back on your journey,
yes, yes,
right?
yes.
Yes.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I'm still, like I said, I still
Yeah.
deal with that. Just to be completely honest, I
Yes.
still have complete breakdowns where I'm like,
Mhm.
despite this progress I've made, what I've
Mhm.
accomplished, this book being out there, recently, I had a complete, breakdown, but then I just paid attention. I was in
Mm.
deep grief, and I just paid attention. It's
Mm.
really about noticing what happens next. You know,
Wow.
um, yeah,
Wow.
that's something that I'm realizing, and I really want to share that with people. Yeah.
Well, I'm so thankful that you did. I'm so thankful that you shared that. Please, well, I'm going to, yeah, the copy never make a sound. I love how you said it's like a tool. Yes, I am getting my
Yeah.
tool. As a mental health counselor as well, I'm getting my tool of that book to be able to really relate and understand this journey of healing and trauma and making the sound and end up making the sound, right? Um,
Yeah, yeah, and I wanted to say also about the book is that one of the
uh-huh.
ways I wrote it, I put a lot of white space in it. There's a
Mm,
lot of white space. I put the stories, it's really sort of spread out sparsely in the within the pages, and I do that because I want to invite. It's a way also just to invite introspection, and
mm,
maybe even writing. People can even write in those spaces, like whatever, because it's a tough read, and that
mhm.
was that was one of the reasons why I did it that way with my editor. Is to give that reader sort of a break and a pause, but in that pause, maybe you come in. I'd
Right.
really like to invite that. If you read this book, it's like, think about that as you go through the book. Your voice can come in, your memories, and you can maybe that can maybe even be something that helps to open up your story and your experience.
Mm, mhm. Wonderful. I love that. Okay, that's great. So you tell us about the writer's residence a little bit in Southern California right
Oh
now.
yeah, so I'm coming to you from Southern California. I'm
Yeah.
I'm just doing a writing retreat. Like I said, I have not a retreat. Sorry, it's a residency.
Uh-huh.
I just have it's wonderful. It's a great opportunity to go away and be in a gorgeous like mountain setting, and working on some new work. I won't say too much about it, but
Yeah.
I just gave myself this space to come and tap into some new things that I want to say, and that I'm looking forward to sharing. So yeah,
Okay.
that's
All right.
that's
And we
what
are
I'm doing.
definitely looking forward to what comes out of this residency and what comes out of your taking the space to write now. I love that. We look forward to seeing definitely what's more to come from you. Um, any
Yeah, if you want to stay updated with what I'm doing,
yes,
follow along. My newsletter, like I said, if you go to my
yes.
website, you can sign up, and I'll do a lot of sharing through that, and yeah, so that's a good way to keep up with my upcoming shares.
Okay, perfect. And so anyone who wants to get to be a part of that newsletter would just log in, would sign in and know how to register to get the newsletter sent to them.
Exactly, that's
Okay.
right. Yeah.
All right. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Any Now I know that, the essence of this talk was really around, talking about healing and giving sort of, um, you know, introspect around that. Anything you would say to
Mhm.
a young girl, maybe a young
Mm.
girl or a young boy? What would you say? I'm not saying that there maybe are listeners right now, but maybe someone who's listening is connected. And what would we say to that young person?
I would say you're great, you're terrific. It's not, if however you're being treated, it's not because there's anything wrong with you. I
Mhm,
That's what I would say.
mhm,
It's the if you are being, in an environment where you are being mistreated, abused, not taken care of, understand that it's their issue. You are great, and you will have the opportunity to one day, uh, uh, I guess, chart your own path and
mm,
live the life that you want, and uh, really focus on making good choices. And
mhm.
right, so that's
Yeah.
what I would say to a young girl or boy. It's like, you are great. There's nothing wrong with you.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
That's wonderful. I love that. It doesn't define who they are at all. It's not a it's
absolutely.
it's
Yeah,
it's traumatic, it's troublesome, it's all of those things, but it's not a defining, that's not the final
absolutely
defining,
not.
yeah,
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 a
destination.
lot of the time it's not your fault. Whatever's
Yeah.
happening isn't your fault, and
Yes.
it's not because you're defective or there's anything wrong with you.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
Any last thoughts or comments?
Yeah, I mean, I guess just thank you so much for this opportunity, and take care of yourself. And I know that people tend to ignore problems that they can't solve.
Mm,
I would say keep trying, don't give up.
mhm,
That's my
mhm.
message. I think that the one through line of my story is just never giving up and
Right.
constantly pushing to get to the next level, and the next level, the next layer, or pushing to if you're trying to heal, do not give
Mhm,
up. Just
mhm.
if a tool hasn't worked, just keep trying. It's really about continuing to push and try, and that's what made all the difference with me, I think.
Okay. Now we do have a few minutes left, so I want to just make sure I don't leave this stone unturned. When you say, because I know we talked about it a bit earlier as well, when you said, that perseverance, keep trying. When you feel like it's at your end of your rope, and I know this is different for everybody, but what is it that we can tap into that is going to keep us trying when you feel like, what, this is the end of the rope. I've tried, I've been in this cycle for, doesn't matter, I'm X amount of time. What is it that keeps us
Hmm.
trying? What is it that keeps us going, in your opinion, in your observation? Or what can we use to keep trying? I'm not sure even how to ask it, but something like that.
Um, I mean, it's, I guess it varies depending on the kind of situation that you're in. But this is
Yeah.
something that I actually talked about quite recently. Is
Hmm.
that when you are in grief and all you want to do is just curl up into a ball and
Mhm.
not do anything. All
Mhm.
you can do is really observe. Just
Mm.
really observe. Like, how do I put this? Instead of being so in it, just step outside it and go, okay,
Mhm.
how does this actually feel? Observe what you are actually
Mhm.
feeling, and a lot
Mhm.
of the times that can take you out of it,
Yes.
and you can just start to experience everything as a changing sensation in your body. Really pay attention to your sensations, um, and be curious. I think curiosity. I think that's probably a more elegant, seamless way of doing
Mhm.
it. Is what keeps you going is curiosity.
Mm.
And you can start by being curious about what you're feeling, curious about
Mhm.
yourself. But it's that curiosity that's going to that will make you keep going. I think I honestly believe that. Yeah.
Okay. I love that. So, curiosity, making a sound,
Mhm.
never giving up, getting it from
Yes.
in to out, in dealing,
Expressing it. That's right.
correct, correct, in dealing with trauma. Well, I thank you so
Yeah.
much, Fanen
I thank
Chiahemen,
you so
and for
much.
your lovely memoir, Never Make a Sound. It's fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being so courageous. Hmm.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, and much courage to you and all the listeners as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you. All right. Well, I thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you soon on Coping in Color, Black Mental Health Canada's podcast. Thank you.
Coping in color. Coping in color. Coping in color. Coping in color.
Okay, perfect. We are no longer live.
Okay.
How was that?
Yeah.
It was amazing. It was very, very good. It was just a little bit of lagging. I didn't know what I could do while it was already in live process. I couldn't really do
Oh,
much. But it
okay.
was really good. Conversation was really good. Really, really good.
Yeah,
Was it
I
okay? Good.
love.
Because I
Sorry.
have no idea. Like you said, I'm a newbie at this, so I was